We need a model for our RecyclerView list items. I prefer to keep my list models separate from the API models. So let's create a new package in the home module called list. Create a new Kotlin class called repo item. And this will be a data class that has name, description, star count, and fork count. These are all the properties we need to display a repository in our list. Now we're going to need a layout for our item. First, let's add the constraint layout dependency. We can find the versions on the Android X versions page. And we can find the artifact by clicking on the constraint layout link. We'll update the project build.gradle file with the constraint layout version and add a property to our Android X array for the artifact. Then we can add this as a dependency to our home module's build.gradle file. Before we create the layout, we're going to need a couple of icons to represent our star count and fork count. We can use the included vector asset library to find some icons to suit our purpose. The star icon works for our star count. And then we'll add another one and try to find something to represent our fork count. Looking through here, the call split icon looks good enough, so we'll go ahead and use that and just rename it to IC_fork. Now create a new layout resource called repo item. This will be a constraint layout with 4 text views. I'm just going to paste all the code in here, and then we can quickly go through how the constraints are set up. The main thing here is we have the end constraint of the name and description text views set to the start of the star and fork text views. This just ensures the name or description won't overlap the counts. And then we can see we're using the drawable start to add the icon to our text views for both the fork and star. Back in the list package, create a new class called home repo adapter. This will extend RecyclerView Adapter, and we need to have a view holder here. So let's just make a nested class here for our view holder. This will take in a binding that is generated by the viewBinding plugin, and then we can pass binding.root to the view holder constructor. Add a method called bind here that takes in a repo item. This is what's going to be called from onBind view holder. This one's pretty straightforward. We're going to set the name text view equal to the repo name, description equal to the repo description, and then for star and fork counts, we are just going to create a string from the integers from our data class. We can now add our view holder as the type for the RecyclerView adapter and add the methods that we need to override. For onCreateViewHolder, we'll create our binding from the generated inflate function, and then return a new view holder that takes in our binding. For getItemCount, we need to have some sort of property in our adapter that's holding on to the current items. Let's add a property called data that's a mutable list, and we'll initialize this as an empty mutable list. Back in getItemCount, we can just return data.size. In onBindViewHolder, we will call the bind function that we added to our view holder and just pass in the item from our data list. Lastly, we need to add a way to update the data in our adapter. We'll create a function called setRepoItems that takes in a list of repo items. And we're just going to go ahead and clear our internal list, add all the new items, and then notify dataset changed. This is obviously not the most efficient way to create a recycler view, but I didn't want to spend too much time on this because it's not very pertinent to how to use Dagger overall. That's it for the adapter setup. We'll move on to creating the view model next.